Craig Newmark is the Craig of Craigslist. He founded the website in 1995, and he's worth about $1 billion. And that's a very conservative estimate of his net worth. It's based on an estimated minimum 42% stake in Craigslist, as well as the hundreds of millions in profits that he's gotten through the website in the last 2 decades. He's a unique character. I mean, he's unlike any other billionaire that I've ever interviewed. For one, he makes himself very accessible. And, he still lives in the same house in San Francisco, in a very quiet neighborhood in Coal Valley. He's just like a really normal person. I think a lot of reporters here in the newsroom started seeing all these gifts that Craig was giving to journalism, to cybersecurity, to election integrity. Craig read this book called The Handbook of Russian Information Warfare. It was published by NATO Defense College's Research Division. And it was this handbook that essentially told the reader what the Russians were doing to essentially polarize different groups in the country with the goal of division, chaos, and government destabilization. And so given all these goals that these foreign adversaries had, Craig thought that really giving to journalism, cybersecurity, and election integrity was the best way to fight against that. So I emailed Craig and asked if he'd be open to speaking with me about his charity. And he said yes.
They're all parts of the same thing, having to do with defending our country against attack by our foreign adversaries and their domestic allies. That means protecting the election, which is the major battle space this year, and that includes countering harassment, especially directed against journalists, and it also involves trying to tell people in media to avoid amplifying disinformation. But the idea is to try to stop bad actors from attacking our election.
He's most worried about foreign adversaries having control of our government. But he also said that he was worried about the domestic allies of the foreign adversaries.
There are parties in the U.S. who see that our foreign adversaries are trying to destabilize the country. When a country is destabilized, it provides opportunities for the unscrupulous to make a lot of money and to gain power. That's what I'm worried about.
And if you look at his Twitter feed, the stories that he's been sharing and retweeting, they're all about the election, and they're all about pointing out, the lies that Trump has been saying out in media. As a journalist, there's always a danger in having a wealthy benefactor be your sole source of revenue, right? You have Jeff Bezos owning the Washington Post. Mark Benioff owns Time Magazine. Shouldn't we come up with, a more self-sustaining model so that we're not beholden to these wealthy benefactors, right? But at the same time, I think Craig is being thoughtful with how he's giving back to journalism. He's giving back to schools. He's funding existing newsrooms like ProPublica. He's got to focus on nonprofit newsrooms. And it'll be interesting to see how Craig strategizes his giving in the coming years. I mean, 2020 is going to be a pretty decisive year for Craig. It's going to tell him whether all this money that he's given has been a good investment or if it's gone to waste. Depending on what happens in November, that's definitely going to affect how Craig gives, but we'll just have to wait and watch.